Okay, we'll start. There's two ways to do Tonglen meditation. One, there's actually three ways. One would be in a long retreat. For example, you could do it as a practice for a month or 6 weeks, and you could do a long retreat dedicated to it. And in that case, you would have to be following the regimen of a retreat, which is very special. And it would take me like a day or two to explain that to you. And that's not what we're going to do this weekend. You see what I mean? We're not really doing a formal retreat. The rules would be different, the behavior would be different, the food would be different, you know? I mean, everything would be different. You wouldn't go outside, you couldn't look outside, you couldn't speak to each other. Hopefully you wouldn't even see each other. Things like that. And that's something we can do sometime. You know, you should learn how to do that. And that requires being in resident at that place and things like that. The second way is to actually do Tonglen as you're walking around, as you're at work, as you're working in your home, as you're eating, as you're cooking, as you're walking your dog, Yeshi, you know. There is a practice like that, and we're going to get to that later. But that's also not what we're going to do right now. And then the third way is to actually do like your daily meditation, focusing on Tonglen. So that's what I'd like to go over. So actually for the next 4 days, we will just keep doing single sessions in a way that you could actually do it in your home. And it's going to be repetitive. I mean, I'll give you a short talk about some detail of Tonglen from 2,000 years of tradition. And I'll say, okay, here's what the first Panchen Lama said in 16 such and such, or here's what Tome Sambo said in 13 such and such, or here's what Shantideva said in 750. And I think that's fun to know the theory of it. And I think it's important to do that. I've heard a lot of people do a lot of strange things with Tonglen. You know, they heard something about it from somebody and then they're doing it. There's actually ways you can do it that are improper or wrong or harmful to you in a small way. I think with most Buddhist practices, the worst thing an American can do is make them so they don't work. You see what I mean? It's not like your head's going to split open or you're going to go to hell or anything like that. I think the ultimate punishment is if it just didn't work, you know. So we'll try to identify those problems. So I'll talk a little bit before each session. And it'll be directly taken from some authoritative source, which is, I think, the way Buddhism should be taught. And then each time we'll really do a real session. And then I just would like you to get used to doing that kind of a session. And then, personally, for myself, there's no more useful meditation on a daily basis than Tonglen. I've been trying to meditate for 20, 25 years. And, you know, if you want to save some time, to me that's the most useful one. You know, it's really kind of works. It is kind of like fast food. And I think if you try it for a while, you'll see that it's really, really nice. If you get good at Tonglen, and you'll see from the reading that you're going to get, there are certain immediate benefits. I think one important one is called protection, you know. The compassion component of Tonglen is immediately acts as protection. You know, in Buddhism you have this concept of refuge, and you also have this concept of protection, and that's where you get into Dharma protectors, for example. You know, beings who can protect you. Those beings, like everything else in the world, like the candle last night, are empty. They can't do anything by themselves. They are impotent from their own side. You know, these big, fierce, tough guy Dharma protectors, they can't do anything if you don't have compassion. You see? They're powerless. If you try to do some Dharma protector practice and you don't have any compassion and you're not doing it for purposes of compassion, it'll be exactly like the candle. You know what I mean? It has no power from its own side to be anything, and nothing will happen. You see, that's the worst case scenario, right, for an American. Is we're not sure if Buddhism works, and then if you do it the wrong way and it doesn't work, you could reject it, you know. That would be the worst thing. Dharma protectors do work. You can find beings to help you and protect you. For example, if you can't sleep at night, if things bother you at night. I had a student who, for 15 years, had this phobia at night about someone being in the house, and she would wake up her husband, and he had a flashlight near the bed, and he would actually have to go through the house with the flashlight, even though they had never found anything in 15 years. You see what I mean? 2 or 3 times a night sometimes. This was my friend Scott, who was here from Arizona, and she's not like a big Buddhist or anything, but she said, is there anything you can do? And I said, do this special Tonglen, and she did it, and it's never come back. That was like 3 years ago or something, and she's never had it happen again. And if you do Tonglen properly, especially the compassion part, it can actually protect you. This is a benefit, you know, of Tonglen. Conversely, if you ever did any kind of protection practice, and it wasn't involving love for everyone else around you, of course it wouldn't work. You see what I mean? Like, for example, if you had a fight about a protector or something, that'd be the silliest way to ruin the protector. The protector can't do anything if you don't have compassion. You see what I mean? It'd be really funny. It'd be like the best way to short-circuit a Dharma protector would be to lose your bodhicitta. You know what I mean? It's very funny. It's a very weird situation like that. Protection is imparted by compassion. And the first benefit of Tonglen is it can protect you. It really will protect you. It attracts the attention of enlightened beings, you know. It's like honey. It's like, what do you call it stuff? Pollen. What do they go after, the bees? Nectar, right? It's like nectar for a bee, you know. I mean, frankly, enlightened beings see all objects in the universe at the same moment. You know, so it's not like they could ignore you. They know your mind all the time. Your mind is one of the things that they are knowing at all times. But there's some kind of enhancement that occurs when you are doing Tonglen. You attract more of their attention. They're like, hey, here's someone who's on track. You know, here's someone who's doing the right thing at the right time. And they're actually attracted to you. What do you call it? Irresistibly. They can't help it. You see what I mean? Like, you can actually force them to come to you. I like to do that. It's kind of fun. You know, it's like even if they didn't feel like it, which of course they do feel like it all the time, but even if they didn't want to, they have to come. And they have to stay with you, because you're doing Tonglen. You know, and eventually you could get to a point where you could see them. And they would be attracted to you. And they would be actually impelled to come and be with you. And that's another benefit of Tonglen. That's for real. We're going to talk very, very seriously later on in the weekend about how Tonglen could ever work. You know, is it possible to remove pain from another person, even with the best of intentions? Is it possible to give another person any kind of comfort directly through some meditational practice? Can you send, in reality, any kind of comfort to another being, you know, psychically or something like that? You know, is it possible? Is it even possible? We're going to discuss that, okay? But the bottom line is that Tonglen is perhaps the most effective meditation you could do to help other people. You know, if you're really interested in helping other people. Like I have my mother. My mother died. I was very close to her. It was very poignant. She was in Dharamsala. She was with His Holiness on... Yeah. And I always wondered if I could contact her after that, you know what I mean, and help her. And you can, you know, so you have to learn that. It's very powerful. So those are the benefits of that. I'm just going to go straight through a normal Tonglen meditation. And every Buddhist meditation has to start with preliminaries. You have to do the preliminaries properly. If you don't do them properly, you can expect no results, which is why most Americans get no results. Okay, so we're just going to do a normal meditation. First thing, try to sit up straight. You should try to straighten up the room a little bit. We'll assume this room is pretty straight. And it is. It's a really beautiful altar and it's a beautiful place to meditate. The ambiance should be there, okay? You should put out some offerings for enlightened beings, okay? This is like an act of faith, right? Cookies and milk for Santa Claus, you know? My parents used to say, look, he's not going to come if you don't put out this plate. We would actually bake special cookies for Santa Claus, and this is a big deal. I mean, you can get a bike out of this, you know? You know, we would actually bake, you know, it's the only thing we'd ever do to help in the kitchen. On that day, it was, you know, bake some of these cookies and put them there near the fireplace. And, you know, it's an act of faith. It's saying, I believe in you. So you can't see them now. And you don't know if they're for sure. But putting out offerings is like, okay, at least I have this much faith. I have this little amount of faith that maybe you exist. So I'm going to put out some water bowls. You know, I've never seen the water bowls like suddenly dip down as if someone were drinking from them. They experience those things in a different way, but they do experience them. When you set out a bowl of water, they have a direct experience of some kind of extraordinary bliss from that. So it's important to do that. Have an image of an enlightened being on your altar. I don't like tankas much because they don't feel, you can't feel the warmth of that being. You can't see them blink. You can't feel the breath on your body from their nose. You can't smell how an enlightened being smells. You know, some extraordinary scent that they have. I think that to be near an enlightened being would be a completely different experience. You know, you would feel their warmth from their body. I think their bodies do emanate some kind of warmth, and they do have a special scent, and they move in a certain way, and their eyes are different because of the brain behind the eyes. You know what I mean? It's totally different. The way their eyes move and the way their body moves is different. And so sometimes I think tankas are very misleading. You know, people think about Tara and they think about this poor flat green Tara, you know, who, you know, is stuck on that paper forever, you know, and she's not like that, you know, she's like, you know, you can't see the light coming off a tanka, you know what I mean? And so sometimes I think it's a little misleading, but it's the best we can do right now. Where's that guy's going to do the computer one? That'll be a little better. Yeah. Anyway, bow down to the image, knowing that it's a lot better than that in reality, and you will be like that. I mean, bowing down is also an act of faith. It's saying, I will be like that one day. And then you sit down. There's a 7-point posture of Vairocana, and you put your left hand down first, your right hand down after that. If you can do a full lotus, it's great. I don't know anybody who can do a full lotus comfortably for an hour. I mean, probably there are people, I'm sure there are people, but to honestly say that this is the most comfortable posture that you can sit in, and that you can sit there for an hour or two like that without any kind of pain, I haven't been able to do it. I don't know anyone who does it regularly. I think a half lotus is more reasonable. If if you're trying to like show off and do a full lotus and you start having incredible pain 10 minutes into the meditation, but you don't want anyone to know and you're just like, you know, and I think the purpose of meditation has been defeated. You see what I mean? Because for every millisecond that your mind is distracted, you've lost the continuity of the meditation. You know what I mean? Every time you think about the pain in your legs, you've lost that much meditation time. So it's in your interest, and it's your responsibility as a meditator to get as comfortable as possible. It should be totally comfortable. Don't be embarrassed to have the most comfortable seat in North Carolina, you know. Seriously. It's not your job to make yourself suffer. It is, in fact, a special sin in Buddhism to do harm to your body in the name of religion. You see what I mean? It's called Tushu Tsutem Dan Tushu Chongzin Gitawa. The day you see emptiness, you get rid of that permanently. Anyway, it's a special mistake in Buddhism to think that causing yourself any physical trouble is got anything to do with religion. You know what I mean? You should be as comfortable as possible. Don't eat too much before trying to meditate. It's a disaster, okay? I'm setting you up for lunch, okay? Eat lightly, all right? You can eat as much as you want on Tuesday, you know? So just save all that stuff, especially sugar and things like that, you know? At least for these few days, try not to eat them, okay? So eat lightly. Like greens are good, I hate to say it. Vegetables are good. You know, lightly oil is good. All kinds of sugars are bad. Caffeine is not good for meditation. When you do long-term meditation, you don't even use any of that stuff. And normally I like coffee and I drink coffee, but so your kase chanyo means watch your intake of food while you're trying to meditate. Okay. Then you can have the pizza afterwards. Since you're not in a full lotus, your legs are not where they would be if you're in a full lotus. If you're in a full lotus, the soles of your feet are up around here, and your hands would rest very nicely on them. And this tip of the thumbs would normally fit into the notch of your belly button. On a normally, you know, on an average person, there's no such thing as an average person, okay? Every person's body is different. But generally, if you're in a full lotus and you're doing this gesture, your thumbs would be touching your belly button. And that's ideal. So if you're not doing a full lotus and your feet are farther down, it's good to have some kind of pad. You know, like a sweater is good, or something like that. Something to get your hands up to where the thumbs would hit the belly button. If they're too far down, it's going to bring you down, and then you start to have pain here. Okay? So try to get something like that. Head should be straight. I have this one student, I can't break it. They'll always, you know. Head should be straight, and not too high up and not too far down. Okay, just straight on. You have to watch your shoulders. I carry around this bag for the last 20 years, and I'm always like this, you know. Your shoulders have to be equal. Okay, and I had a teacher who would teach me to go like, you know, and you get it, you go like that, you just snap it down like 4 or 5 times, and it seats itself at a certain point, and then you leave it, okay? And then it'll creep up while you're meditating, you know. You know, so it's important that they be down. There are two great extremes in meditation. One is drowsiness, and one is thinking about too many things. They're called Chingwa and Gopa. And to stay in the state between those two extremes is called nyamshak, which means equilibrium. You see what I mean? Equilibrium between what? Between getting drowsy and thinking too much about other things. You see what I mean? And your meditation has to drive between those two ditches. You know, and you might fall into the ditch. You see what I mean? And frankly, meditation, nyamshak, is very similar to driving in that you're constantly, you see what I mean? If you watch somebody drive, they're constantly correcting left, right. And you're trying to get down the alley without the bowling ball going in the gutter. You see what I mean? It's like trying to go down the middle and not to fall into. This is getting drowsy and spacing out, which are equally bad. By the way, the spacing out is the most common mistake of Americans who try to meditate a lot. They mistake spacing out with good meditation. And that has happened for the last 1,000 years. And Jetsun Kappa is adamant that you should be careful about it. You know, those few Americans who meditate regularly, among them, a great number of them are spacing out, and it's useless. Okay. Then on the other side is thinking too much, and I don't have to tell you about that. You know, that's evident. You're thinking about what are you going to eat today, what are you going to do when you get out of the class this afternoon. You know, what's going to be for breakfast. You know, what are you going to do tonight, stuff like that. What going to be back a day late to work, there's going to be extra stuff piled up, you know, how am I going to deal with that? You know what I mean? I don't have to tell you about that one. This one, Qinghua, you have to avoid eating too much. You should exercise, some kind of useful exercise. Prostrations are good or whatever, but your body should be in good shape to meditate. I don't mean to be a health fanatic, and I'm not, and I think it's stupid to be a health fanatic. But you have to be healthy. You know, your body has to be well taken. You know, it has to be in good tone for meditation, frankly. You know, it has to be in some kind of good condition. Not for purposes of vanity, but for purposes of meditation. It has to be healthy. You should get enough sleep. It's impossible to meditate without enough sleep. If you find that you're not successful in your meditation, you might check that. And you know, it dawns on you sometimes, like after a year of trying to meditate, that the reason it wasn't going well was that you just didn't have enough sleep. So, you know, you should try to get enough sleep. The last one is being too warm. It's a little dangerous in here right now, okay. I personally I take off this. I take off, you know, a couple of layers, and I try to get cold. A little bit cool is good. I try to do a meditation in a warm place is a little harmful. You'll find yourself getting drowsy. Okay, so you should try to avoid that. Personally, I have to take off that stuff, or I just get drowsy. Okay? I get too hot, and heat will build up in your body. The more you meditate, the more hot your body will start to get, and if you meditate a lot over a period of years, then it starts to get hot, and it's important to keep your elbows away from your body, okay? That's one of the reasons to have this posture, okay? Because if you're like this, there's this buildup of heat here, and it's a lot better if your elbows are out. It also forces your back into a straight position. You see what I mean? And the texts say that your back should be a little bit, it should be straight as a rod, and very, very slightly tilted forward is good. Very, very slightly, okay? And that forces you to sit up, okay? It's very important to keep a straight back. As we're going to learn later on in this retreat, there are these things called inner winds, and they are closely related to your thoughts. In fact, we call them, they move in tandem. The word is lungsem jupachikpa. Say lungsem jupachikpa. Lungsem jupachikpa. Jupachikpa means they move in tandem. They always move together. It's very interesting. You have to distinguish between three things: your thoughts, your breath, and your inner winds. Okay? They're not the same thing. These are three different things. Okay? There's your thoughts, your breath, and then there's inner winds. Okay? The first two are connected intimately. Your thought and your inner winds are connected intimately. They're called jupachikpa, connected intimately. It means if your thoughts are very peaceful and calm, your inner winds start to move more smoothly. That has an effect on your breath. Okay, like when you're very contented, you know, like you're sitting hugging somebody you like or something, and you're like, and there's this breath change. You know, your breathing gets more regular, normal, deep, satisfied kind of breathing. You know, when you get angry, or when you have improper kinds of desire, or when you're like scared, then those thoughts affect your inner winds, and those inner winds affect your breathing, and your breathing starts to speed up. Okay. By the way, if you're near a window that got opened, you might want to move away from it. No, because then you might get sick, which is really bad, because it blocks your nostrils. Okay, your nostrils have to be clear. Very important. You don't breathe through your mouth, you breathe through your nostrils. In fact, in the Tibetan monastery, every morning before everybody goes and does their meditation, they teach you you turn on the tap, and you put your head down in the sink, and you just blow out of your nose. You know, don't break your eardrums, okay? But any boogies in your nose, you got to get rid of it, okay? I mean, quite frankly, and don't be shy, you know, get it out. Because it affects your meditation. It's quite practical. I'm not joking, you know, get it out of your nose. That it has to be clear. If you have a bad cold, you can breathe through your mouth rather than suffocate, okay? And that happens from time. But this passage must be clear, especially for Tonglen. Very important for Tonglen. These passages have to be clear. It's a tradition in Buddhism, if you read even sutras, you should wash your mouth out. You know, brush your teeth before you meditate. You shouldn't eat, and then it'll disturb you. If your mouth tastes bad and things like that, you'll start to think about it. So you brush your teeth. We'll talk more about it, but we should get going, okay? Yeah. Mike. Sorry. No, it's good. There's this thing in the Lam Rim about putting into practice immediately whatever teaching you read. And there's a joke about some Lama, an Indian city, who was sitting in a cave on a leather mat, and he was reading Vinaya, and it said, you can't use animal skins to sit on, you know. So he jumped up and he took it and he threw it out, you know. And then he came back and he sat down, and then the second part of the sentence said, unless you're in this cold place and it's all you have. You know? And then he went out and got it and brought it back. That's okay. It's called kopakishi. Anyway, all right. Eyes can be closed or half open as you like. We'll talk more about that later. And I'm going to just take you through a typical meditation. We'll do more details later. We'll go for about 35 minutes, all right? I suggest you keep on you might want to focus them and just leave them on, okay? Because it's useful if you're interested to get this tape, you see? And you can turn it on and you can meditate to it, you see what I mean? Until you get used to it. And then you should not use it, okay? But you can use any one of these tapes. It might be useful for you, okay? First thing you do is watch your breath. Don't try to fool around with your breath. Just watch it. Don't try to do anything special with your breath. Just watch it. We're going to do a few minutes of that. The way you watch your breath is very, very specific. You focus your mind on the skin around the nostril, on the outside. It's like two donuts, okay? It's the skin around the nose, at the opening of the nose, and you'll feel cold air hit the skin, and then you'll feel warmer air passing past the skin. But park your mind right there. I always think of this gates of what is it, the Mediterranean? There's a Robbie must know. What is it? Yeah, the Pillars of. Anyway, I always feel like I'm standing at the Pillars of Hercules, you know, and ships are going in and out. But park your mind there. You know, they have to go through these narrow straits. called your nostrils. And park your mind not even in the middle of the nostril, but right here at the skin. That's how you watch your breath. Okay, park your mind at the straits and watch the ships come in and out. Okay, don't try to do anything with them. Okay, do that for a while. No special content of the meditation at this point. You're just watching your breath. The next preliminary is to take refuge. Every preliminary should be very, very specific. Never do a Buddhist practice that you don't understand. Never do a Buddhist practice that you don't stop and think about. I mean, I really hope that American Buddhism will never have rituals or practices that become thoughtless and people don't stop and think about them while they're doing them. It ruins a spiritual path, and we've seen that in our own culture, where something became meaningless and people just mouthed it. I think it's very much our responsibility as American Buddhists to make sure we never do a practice that we don't understand, or that we never do a practice without thinking about what it means. So when you take, like prostration before class or something, try never to make a prostration without thinking about what it means. So here you take refuge. There are hundreds of ideas about refuge. Just pick one of them and concentrate on it. Never do this vague, fuzzy, thoughtless act of refuge. Take some specific quality of Buddha, Dharma, or Sangha and go for refuge in it. So, and you can pick it yourself, and if you meditate in a group, one person can lead the meditation. So we'll take refuge in the fact that a Buddha cares more about you than you care about yourself. So try to imagine the state of mind of a being, which you will become, that cares more about other people's needs than about themselves. The next preliminary is bodhicitta, and do some specific thought about bodhicitta. Imagine what it would be like if you were enlightened and you could truly help a specific group of people. Try to pick a person or a group of people that you know who are suffering. I would suggest people, imagine how nice it would be if you could assist people who never heard and don't believe in the connection between what happens to them and the good deeds that they do. They don't understand that if they help other people, it's actually the wisest way to help themselves. I mean, there are millions of people in this country who've never been exposed to that idea, and let's think about bodhicitta for them. I could become a Buddha and help these kind of people. Then invite an enlightened being to come and sit in front of you and meditate with you. They can read your mind, they can come. Try very hard to picture what an enlightened being would be like. And I suggest today we especially focus on their eyes. What would their eyes be like? How might their eyes be different? The way they move their eyes. Eyes are a reflection of the soul. You can tell a person's interest by watching their eyes often. So how would an enlightened being's eyes move? And what would they look at in this room? And And try to focus on that right now. Invite an enlightened being to come and sit and meditate with you. Next step is to make some kind of gesture of reverence for them. You could fold your hands in front of your chest, you could do that. Mentally, you could bow to them. It's allowed. I had a little trouble with prostration when I became a Buddhist, and later I found in scripture, you're also allowed to bow on your right knee, to go down on your right knee. Is one kind of prostration. It personally feels a little more comfortable for me because of my background. Either way, imagine that you are acknowledging their holiness and you are also acknowledging what they've already done for you. So I don't think you can do a prostration properly unless you're thinking about how kind this being has been to you. Normally you would be visualizing your root Lama, and it would be very easy to get down on your knee or to do a prostration mentally if you just think about something they've taught you that helped your life. So do that now. Think about something they've taught you that helped your life, and then in your mind do some kind of gesture of reverence to them, like bowing down. Next step is to make them an offering. Some of the sweetest offerings are what we call dapama gyabedze, which means things that nobody owns, like the sunset, or the ocean, or the look on a child's face, a beautiful child's face. So offer your Lama something like that. Offer anything to this enlightened being in front of you. Next step is to clear your conscience. If you have anything negative on your mind, something you said to someone, some fight you had with somebody, some kind of unclean thoughts you're having, things like that, if you have anything on your mind like that, it will disturb your meditation on a very subconscious level. The difference of whether you're ever able to meditate very deeply or not may depend on whether your conscience is clear. And most people never realize that. Jetsun Kappa was very adamant about it. He even wrote a separate piece about it. And so it's important again, choose as a representative a specific thing that you said or thought or did in the last 10 or 12 hours, okay? Something specific that you did that hurt someone, even if it was just a thought. But play it back. I say it should be like a video or a tape recorder. Play it back 2 or 3 times. It's very unpleasant, frankly, to play it back. You don't even want to remember. And it's embarrassing when you really play it back clearly and you hear yourself saying that, you know. It's sort of depressing, actually. But admit that you did have a certain kind of thought, or admit that you did say something to somebody, and make it very specific, even if it's a minor thing. But don't cop out and say, I confess all the times I was jealous, you know. That's useless. Purify your subconscious, your conscience, by thinking as a representative about one specific thing you said or did, even if it was a small thing, and especially if it's a small thing, in the last few hours. This is called purification. Next preliminary is called rejoicing, and I believe that in our culture, the way I grew up, in my church, which was a wonderful church, there was somehow more emphasis on negative things than on positive things. You know, like in our prayer book, we had a section, Book of Common Prayer, and it said there was a place called confession. You know, it was I have not done those things which I ought to have done, and I have done those things which I ought not to have done, and there is no health in us. And it was beautiful. But there wasn't any rejoicing section. And Buddhism says you have to examine your personality, and you have to examine your life, and you must review the good parts before meditation. You have to find the good things you're doing, and you have to think about them carefully, and you're required to be happy about it, okay? So right now, do some rejoicing. Choose, and don't make it this fuzzy, impotent, you know, rejoicing. Oh, you know, I'm happy, I'm a pretty good guy nowadays, you know. Make it very specific, you know. At such and such a time this morning, I directly apologized to the students I was nasty to last night. You know what I mean? And be happy about it. Okay? Something like that. Just pick something specific. next preliminary is to request teachings. You know, and sometimes you tend to think of this as writing a letter to central office and asking that Lama Sepa come, or something like that. That is a request for teachings, but there's also the request that for some kind of blessing, that you be sensitive to the people around you and you pick up all the teachings that people can give you during the day. All day long, if you're a really good Buddhist, you will hear people say things that can improve your practice. Sometimes they're negative, like they're yelling at you, and sometimes they're positive, like you hear someone or you see someone do something really sweet and it gives you an example, and they're not even a Buddhist, you know. So pray that you get teaching during this day. I always say that if you get yelled at in the afternoon, then you can't blame them, because you requested it in the morning. The last preliminary is to make a sincere request to your spiritual teachers that they stay in your life, that they don't pass away. Whether or not they die, or whether or not they go away from you, or whether or not they're around you all the time, it's like the candle last night. It totally depends on your goodness, whether or not you can stay with them. And one of the best ways to get them to stay is to ask them to stay, because you create more good karma by asking. So this is a very, very important step. It's the last preliminary. And you just, recognizing that a really good teacher can save your life. You request them to stay near you. I do. That's the preliminaries, and it's good to do your shifting right here, okay? So if you have to shift, move something, give yourself like a minute, and then we'll start the real meditation part. It won't be long, it'll be 10 or 15 minutes, okay? Of meditation. 2 minutes of shifting. 3 if you're really feeling... Yes. Shift real good, because when you start again, you know he's going to make any noise at all. Okay? No one's going to move at all. Okay, we'll do a real short Tonglen. The beginning of Tonglen is where you focusing on someone's pain and you're taking it into yourself. You're taking it away from them and you take it into yourself. It's very, very important when you take it into yourself that you destroy it within about 2 seconds, okay? And this is a very important part of this practice. You're not supposed to keep it. You're taking certain kind of pain away from somebody. You take it into your heart, and within a second or two you destroy it. And I'm afraid that many people teach it a different way. You know, they don't get it, and they bring it into their heart and they leave it there. Okay? It's not that you're piling up all the pains of everybody else. You're actually just like the Terminator, you know, and you're taking them in and you're just, what's those big garbage places where they burn up the garbage? And you're incinerating it. You're actually incinerating it in your meditation. So don't think it's like, oh gee, you know, I have to take everybody's pain and keep it with me. It's not like that. The point of Tonglen is to take, the point of Len is to take the pain in and then destroy it, incinerate it immediately. Okay, so we'll do that. We're going to do a very short Len of Tonglen, because Len comes first. Alright? Start with your breath. You always go back to your meditation by watching your breath. That's what you use watching your breath for. It was standardized by Vasubandhu in the Abhidharma Kosha in 350 AD in the 5th chapter, 6th chapter. And it is not a meditation in itself. It's just a way to get back into meditation. Okay, so watch your breath and slow down your mind. One detail of Tonglen which is rarely taught properly, but you'll see it in the readings I'm going to give you, has been taught throughout the centuries, is that you always begin by taking the pain of yourself. So you do this visualization by imagining yourself later on this afternoon or this evening. Try to think now of some typical problem that you're going to have this evening. Okay, for me, for example, I have a problem with jealousy. I know that jealousy might come up in my mind this evening. I have a problem with trying to do too many things, and I know I might be doing that this evening. I have a problem with getting irritated when I didn't get enough sleep, and that might happen this evening. Focus on some problem, or maybe a person that's a problem for you, that you can expect to meet later on today, and make it very specific. Pretend you are meditating close by, and you this evening is sitting close by you, like only 3-4 feet away, and they're having this problem. and picture it very, very nicely, where you're going to be, what chair you're going to be sitting in, who's the person that's going to irritate you. You know, try to imagine a problem that you're going to have this evening. And they can't see you, but you're there, and you're observing this guy having this problem, and that guy is you. Now take that problem, for example, for me, you know, having too many things on my plate at a moment, and it disturbing my practice and my relationships with others. So I'm going to visualize that mental affliction as a small black ball of light in my chest, in my heart. So, you know, like an inch under your breastbone. Visualize, remember you're watching you, right? So that guy this evening or that girl this evening is going to have this black ball like a marble under their breastbone, in their chest, in their heart. It's a black hole, it's made of black light. And suck into that black light all that mental affliction. So there's no mental affliction left except what's in that black light. And that's a little ball of icky, gooey, evil black light. And you're concentrating all that negativity into that ball. If you could, you know, take a scalpel and open up their chest and take it out, they wouldn't have this problem anymore, okay? So concentrate all that negativity. For me, it's the mental affliction of wanting too much to do and not being calm, you see? And I'm going to focus that into a black ball in my chest. So you're watching this guy, and he's got this black ball. Then decide that you would like to take this black ball away from them. And see it, take 10 breaths. On each in-breath, move the ball, dislodge it from their chest, let it come up their throat, and it comes out of their nose. And see it moving through the air towards you. It's very important that you don't let it come into you yet. So you stop it in the air, just hang it in midair in front of your face, and you're just looking at it. And take 10 breaths now. Suck that negativity out of that future you, this evening's you, and bring it towards you. But don't let it touch you yet, okay? Now you leave the ball there in the space, don't let it touch you, and focus on your heart, your 12 o'clock noon heart, okay? Not the other guy's heart. That's your 5 o'clock this afternoon heart, right? Let's say 7. You got to get home and have time to have your mental afflictions. So focus on your own heart now and see a small flame there. It's about 1 inch high. It's red. In the scriptures it says it's like a butter lamp flame. And see a small flame there. And this is a negative thing. This is like the burning of your selfishness. It's the light. It's the eternal flame of your selfishness. And it's sitting there. And you have to imbue it with some real meaning. Don't do a Buddhist practice unless you imbue it with real meaning. Don't sit there and say, oh, this is my selfishness, you know. You have to charge it or load it with some real event that you've done in the last few hours. And if you're going to do this practice well, it should be a small, concrete example of your own selfishness that you exhibited in the last few hours. And even if it's just that you didn't share a cup of tea, or you took too long in the bathroom and you knew people were waiting outside. People think that Buddhist practice is some universal, cosmic thing, and it's not. It comes down to the small things you do around other people. And if you're going to move into a Buddha paradise and not die in this life, the ticket is the small things in your life. So focus on some small selfish thing you did in the last few hours, even just not moving out of someone's way or something like that, and see that as a flame in your heart. It's very good, by the way, to take about 10 breaths on each step, and in the back of your mind you can count 10 breaths. It keeps you from getting bogged down in a meditation. A lot of people's meditation fails because they get bogged down on some step. Keep it moving, okay? It's like a subway stop, and then you spend 10 breaths there, and then you go to the next stop, okay? And that keeps your meditation on track. Otherwise you get tired, and your meditation starts to fade. 10 breaths, some specific event of selfishness this morning. It can be a thought also. Now, next we're going to take one breath. Don't do it yet. I mean, you can keep breathing, all right? But we're going to take one deep in-breath when I say go, okay? And the black ball is going to come into your nose, pass down into your throat. It's going to go down to your heart. And do this last part slow-mo, okay? As it gets to the flame, slow it down, slow your breath down. You know, this is the end of the in-breath. It's like a satellite hitting the space shuttle, or, you know, this slow-mo kind of thing. And the ball is slowly approaching the flame. And just as they make contact, try to concentrate very, very well. And they make contact, and there's like an explosion of white light. And it's like gasoline got set off or something. And the flame goes out immediately. They say meditate on a short moment of blackness. The flame just blows out and it's gone. and then immediately there's a wisp of smoke, very tiny, like a small cigarette smoke, and it just dissipates, and that's the suffering. The black ball got blown up into smoke, and then the smoke, just see the smoke fade away, and it's gone completely, and all of that negativity is destroyed. It's very, very important to believe that all that negativity has been destroyed. So when I say go, do it, and then you're going to keep the white light like almost like a glow in your chest, okay? A small glow of white light is left over, and those other two things are all gone, okay? Get the visualization right first, the flame and the ball. Okay, go. Now keep breathing, but enjoy the white light in your chest. It's a soft white light, beautiful, soft white light in your chest. Now focus again on yourself this afternoon or this evening, and see them like there's some kind of relief in them. They don't even know really what happened because they're not aware of you, but they don't have that problem anymore. Just imagine that the problem started to come up and then suddenly it just dissipated and went away, and they don't even know why, but they feel very contented and happy and calm, and they started to get their favorite old mental affliction, and then something happened and it's not there. And enjoy it. Now come back to now. Focus again on the Lama who's sitting in front of you. It's considered very bad luck to stop a meditation leaving them hanging out there. You always withdraw them into your heart. The way is that you request them in your mind to please come and be a part of you and help bless your mind, and they get smaller and smaller. They rise up. They're about 3-4 inches high, and they come to the top of your head, and they sit there facing the same way as you. And they shrink down to about 1/2 inch, and they start melting into the top of your head, and they're coming down your just in front of your spine. then in your heart, in your chest, prepare them a really beautiful little chamber, and that's the inside of your heart, and there's a beautiful flower there, a huge flower, and in the middle of the flower is a soft cushion, and it's a golden light there and beautiful place, and then you invite them to come and sit there, and you ask them to stay with you during the day. And very important at this stage to imagine that they are very, very happy about what the meditation you just did, and they're very proud of you. And they love you very much, and focus on how much they love you. Final step of dedication is what we did last night in the church. You imagine all the good energy that was created in this room. It's very unusual anywhere in the world for this much good energy to be created in such a short time, and you imagine it rippling out into the future and affecting many, many people. The repercussions of this event, this last hour or two in this room, that it should ripple out and affect many, many people into the future and help them. That each one of us will become a conduit to touch other people, and then they will touch other people, and they will teach other people, and imagine it that way. That's called dedication. So spend 1 minute, and then we'll do a short dedication prayer. Okay, I think you have the dedication prayer. I don't know. Do they? No? Is it in, I think it's in the folder. It's called Ngoa, or dedication. Don, can you read it? Okay, see you around, let's say 2:30, okay? And then we'll go from 2:30 to 5, all right? You have to do those two prayers. Ready? You want to do? Okay. We'll do the short mandala, and then the going for refuge. Okay. Good job. Okay. They call this practice Tonglen' in Tibetan. Okay. Say Tong. Len. Tonglen'. Okay. And there's this big debate about whether it should be called Lentong or Tonglen'. In the monastery, debate just about everything. Tong means to give away something, and len means to take away something. So give away and take away, something like that. The word in Tibetan is give away and take away. And I put in the reading, we're having trouble printing the reading out, okay? I mean, we were working all lunchtime and it didn't work yet, so you won't get it tonight. Hopefully you get some installments tomorrow. But I think you'll have about 50 pages of sources, you know, about how to do this practice. So you'll be able to read all the details. And there is a discussion of whether Tong comes first or Len comes first. You know, do you give away first or do you take away first? And to get the answer to that, you have to understand the idea of two kinds of love in Tibetan. There are two kinds of love in Buddhism. They're called Jampa and Nyingje. Say Jampa. Nyingje. Jampa. Nyingje. Jampa is like, it's the word Maitreya, you know, Mitra, meaning friendly or loving one. And that's the name of the next Buddha that will come on this planet. And then Nyingje in Sanskrit is karuna, like mahakaruna, meaning compassion. And there's a big difference between the two kinds of love. Nyingje, karuna, it looks at the person that it's thinking about, and it wants to take away all their pain. Okay, so it's like if the example in scripture is that there's a mother, and one of her children, she has only one child, and the child is very sick. So the mother is like focusing on the child and very worried that the child might die or something, and is obsessed with that idea. And if you've ever, you know, those of you who are mothers or who have observed mothers, I guess we all have. Most of us. I mean, they get really fanatical when the child is sick. You know, they don't care about anything else, and all they're worried about is whether or not the child is going to get better. And that's the example, and that's the aspect of compassion. Ningje. Ningje wants to remove the pain that people have. Jampa, on the other hand, wants to give them good things. You see what I mean? Like Jampa's the state of mind of a mother who wants to see the kid graduate from a good school and wants to see them be the captain of their sports team and wants to see them get straight A's and wants to see them, you know, be healthy and stuff like that. That's Jampa. See, so Ningje wants to take away all the bad things, and Jampa wants to make sure they get all the good things. In some presentations, Jampa comes first, which is called Yeong Jampa. Yeong Jampa means this attraction of the mother to her child or something like that has to be very strong before you can really do Ningje, which is taking away their pain. You have to be really attached to your child before you take away their suffering. And there are some presentations in that way. But the more natural presentation is that, of course, if the child was really sick, you wouldn't be worrying about their grades. You know, and you wouldn't be worrying about what kind of college they're going to get into. You would be worried about getting them better first. And then you'd be obsessed by taking away their suffering. And then you would work to try to get them into a good school or something like that. So it's pretty much agreed in most of the scriptures that in practice you do Ningje first, compassion first, and then you do love. So first of all, you meditate on taking away people's sufferings and pain. And then you contemplate on giving them good things, giving them what they need. Okay. What's that got to do with Tonglen? Well, Tong is giving away. Tong is, we haven't got to it yet, but you take that white light and you're going to use it. We'll get to that maybe Sunday. And you send it out to people. And there's a very cool meditation where you turn into whatever they need. You know, like if they need a dog, you turn into a dog and at the end of this white light. Or if they need a bridge, you know, if they don't have a bridge in their city over a certain river, you emanate your body as a bridge. Or, you know, some old man is lonely and you turn yourself into a grandmother. And if some high school kid is lonely, you turn yourself into a cheerleader. And, you know, and like that, you know. So that's Jampa, and it's a very cool meditation. So first, normally you would be practicing taking on people's suffering, taking away people's suffering. I almost prefer to call it taking away than taking on, right? I mean, people have taught Tonglen as meaning you're taking on their suffering. And I think this is Judeo-Christian thing, you know, groaning under the weight of the sins of mankind, you know, or something like that. You don't have to, okay? You take all those sins of mankind and incinerate them, you see? That's the idea. And you get rid of them. So they don't have to experience them and you don't have to experience them. I mean, the idea that you could actually take away someone's bad karma is false, okay? You can't. There's no such thing. It's impossible. Prove it. The Buddhas didn't do it yet. You see what I mean? If any one of us is suffering, and I don't know about you, but I am, you know, I mean, I'm not suffering major, big time right now, except for the human condition, right, which is the biggest. But anyway, if the Buddhas could take away my suffering, even just the stiffness in my hands from trying to type during the lunch, you know, of course they would. You know, are they just going to sit around and, what are they, sadistic, right? Is it that they have the capacity to do it and they're holding out, you know, and they're waiting for something, you know, maybe we're supposed to grovel, you know, and say, please, you know, take away my suffering. And they say, well, okay, since you groveled, we'll take away your suffering, you know. It's not, there's no Buddhist text that says that they can take away your suffering. They can't. If they could have, they would have a long time ago. And we wouldn't be here, you know. That's it doesn't work like that. You see, that's not what really happens when you do this practice. You can't really take away another person's suffering, and you can't really directly incorporate it into your. If you haven't done that bad karma yourself, you can't suffer. You see what I mean? And even pretending or visualizing or meditating that you are taking away their suffering, is that a good deed or a bad deed? It's like the best good deed you can do, just about. That's not a bad karma. And it couldn't result in any suffering for you. You see what I mean? The action is a sweet, holy, sacred, good deed. The wish that you could take away their pain. So it's the last thing in the world that's going to cause you pain. Okay? It's very interesting. The more you want to take away their pain, the less you'll be able to. You see what I mean? Because pain is a result of bad karma. You see? It's really good karma to want to take away their pain. And the more you want to do it, the less you would ever get any pain from them. You see what I mean? So never think of Tonglen as, taking on people's pain and storing it somewhere and suffering under this heavy load somehow yourself. It doesn't work like that. The Buddhism doesn't teach it that way. Buddhism says the closer you get to being really able to help other people, the better you feel. The more blissful it is for you. The closer you get to being really able to help people, the closer you get to becoming a Buddha, the more things are happy and blissful for you. And you couldn't feel bad if you wanted to. You see what I mean? But we'll get into that more later. So anyway, if you think about it, the taking has to happen first, and then the giving has to happen later. So all the texts say, really, this practice should have been called Lentong. Okay? Tonglen just sounds better in Tibetan. Okay? And the order, there are some texts that teach it the other way around, but normally you do the taking first, and then you do the giving away later. So that's the way that we'll do it here. The taking away relates to the kind of love where you take people's suffering, karuna. You see what I mean? The taking corresponds to compassion. The giving corresponds to what we call love. Okay, love meaning you want to give them nice things. Okay, so actually these two practices, giving and taking, correspond to taking corresponds to compassion, and giving corresponds to love. These happen to be 2 steps in the 7-step way of getting bodhicitta, of developing bodhicitta. Okay, and there's a beautiful teaching where you combine the 2 methods of getting bodhicitta. The 7-part method, and then exchanging self and others. So you get 13 steps in there somehow. And we translated it for you, and it's in the handout you get. So if you're in the mood, sometimes you can mix the 2. You can do the 7-step method, and then you can do the exchange method. And both of them lead to bodhicitta. You can get bodhicitta either way. To get real bodhicitta is extremely rare. To feel real bodhicitta is extremely difficult. If someone in this room achieved it in this lifetime, it would be a big achievement. If one person in this room got real bodhicitta during this lifetime, it would be there should be a plaque in the Kadampa Center. You know what I mean? Seriously. We do the prayer before class. Before the class we did a prayer and it said, "May I become a Buddha to help every living being." And it is the wish to reach highest bliss in order to help other people, to be of service to other people. And experientially, the real first moment of bodhicitta is a very profound experience, even physically. There's even some physical reaction that happens to you. And there are extraordinary mental things that happen to you. And they roughly, it's this feeling of almost like a clear light coming out of your chest, like a rod or not a stream, not like this, but more like this. And then there's a certain knowledge in your mind that for the rest of your life, no matter what you do, it will be to serve other people, to serve other beings. And the light is, you see the light going out and touching other beings, as many as there are. And it's not like you see each ray of light touching every living being, which is too many to even focus on. But you're aware that the ends of this light are touching every living being, and you're very, very clearly aware that you will spend the rest of your life helping other people, and that nothing you do will be you'll never do any other action than to help other people. And the way you'll help them is primarily to teach them the way to stop their death and to stop their suffering. And that's all. That's the feeling of it. But to get true bodhicitta is a very high level. If you divide the Buddhist path into 15 levels, it's 11, okay, something like that. You don't get to the first level without an extraordinary amount of practice, you see. To get to level number 1 would be rare. And we're talking the 11th level of 15. You see, to feel real bodhicitta. But you have to keep trying, And Tonglen is very powerful for achieving that. It has a certain power to it, which comes from the fact that you use your breath. We said before there are 3 elements going on here. One is your breath. You're using your breath. One is your inner winds, your inner energies that are part of... You have a body that's lying under your physical body. Like here's your physical body, and then you have like a spirit body or a body of some kind of spiritual energy that underlies this body. You have both already. In fact, to be a human in this particular realm is supposed to be perfect for achieving enlightenment in this life. Like your body happens to have certain energies in it that many other bodies don't have. And that's the basis for the secret teachings. It's only because you have that kind of body that you can become enlightened in this lifetime. So there's a body like that, what you can call a spiritual body, that you already have. It's undeveloped, it's underdeveloped. And then there's your physical body lays on top of it. So the physical body is running on breath, and the spiritual body is running on inner airs, inner winds. And they're deeply related to each other. And then below both of them are your thoughts. It's your thinking process. And it's almost, they're lying like 3 on top of each other. Down here are your thoughts. On top of that is your spiritual body. And on top of that is your physical body. And anything that happens down on level 1 affects level 2. And anything that happens on level 2 affects level 3. So it's very interesting. If you get angry, for example, it disturbs your inner winds, your inner airs. Because the inner airs and your thoughts are riding in tandem. And then that change in level, body number 2, right, affects your physical body. You start to breathe faster. And the intake is faster than the out normally. And that's a sign that your mind is screwed up, okay? That's a sign that your thoughts are screwed up. That affects your inner winds, and then that affects your breathing. And if the breathing is like that, is uneven, the intake is much faster than the out, and it's too frequent. And that, as like you're angry, when you're angry, for example, or frightened, then that quick intake builds up what we call lung, okay? And that's a different meaning of wind. The word means wind. Lung means wind. In that case, it means an excess of wind. Wind is starting to pile up. Wind is starting to accumulate. The inner airs are being blocked. And then you get problems like not being able to sleep, or nervousness, or agitation could lead to a heart attack eventually. That's why people get a heart attack. It's an imbalance of the spiritual winds caused by anger, or stress, or worry. So the body and the mind are intimately connected that way. Why do we talk about that? This practice, from the beginning, even since the time of Tonglen Sangpo, has been connected to your breathing. You know, some Lama somewhere, probably the Buddha, designed it to be connected to your breathing process. And in effect, it's very interesting. And I'm not going to go into that today, but you are forcing a change in the physical body in the hopes that it will affect the inner wind, in the hopes that that will affect the thinking. Because normally it's the opposite. Normally you get mad, which affects the inner winds, which screws up the breathing. Okay? And here you're working backwards. It's very interesting. You see? You are doing something forcefully to the breathing in the hopes that it will affect the inner winds, which affects your thinking. What I'm trying to say is there's a principle of Tonglen that if you breathe properly while you're doing Tonglen, it's easier to get bodhicitta. You see what I mean? It's very interesting. You know, and that's an extraordinary benefit of Tonglen. You are, and that's why it's easy. You know, you want fast food, just fix your breathing. You see what I mean? Anybody could do that, right? It's actually a method by which you affect your breathing, which affects your inner winds, which slows them down, makes them flow more easily, and that sets your mind up very sweetly for bodhicitta. It's easier to learn to love other people as much as you love yourself if you do this practice with your breathing. Okay? It's very unique in Buddhism. It's a very special teaching. That teaching also leads directly into some other teachings in the Dzogchen practice. For those of you who have permission to try that or to work with that, it leads directly into some practices there. Okay, Pabonka Rinpoche, in his famous, he wrote a book called The Gift of Liberation, Thrust into Your Hands, which has been sort of weakly translated as Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand. And when he got to this part, he said, I can't tell you much about it, okay? Because there were people in the audience that book was spoken before a large audience, and he said, not everybody in this audience has permission to study these things, and I can't get into that right now, okay? I thought you might like to hear one of the most important sources of the Tonglen, and it's also a blessing to hear these verses. These are very, very famous verses spoken by the first Panchen Lama, and it's called Lama Chepa, which means the offering to lamas. The other name of that book is the Indivisible Union of Emptiness and Bliss. Okay, all right. It's called the Dayton Yer Mema, and it's commonly known as Lama Chepa. Okay, but the other name for it is the Indivisible Union of Emptiness and Bliss. There are actually a number of Lama Chepas, meaning texts which concentrate. It's a ritual that you do to do offerings and do praise to your lamas. And Tibetans will often do this every 2 weeks on a certain holy day during the month. You know, for example, Trijang Rinpoche, the tutor to His Holiness, still does it every 2 weeks. You know, if you ever visit him and you're there on that day, you just do it with them. And it's really beautiful. It's really nice. So many centers do this twice a month on what they call Tsok date. I thought I would read you the Tibetan of about 5 verses from that. And then I'll read you a translation of it. And then you'll get it if we ever figure out how to get the printer working, okay? And it just gives you the context. Again, I think it's very important that you know the context where you are in the Lam Rim. Where are you when you start doing Tonglen? And you'll get the context from these verses, okay? So I'll just read it. This is like a mini lung. Lung means, which is different from lung, okay? Lung means inner air, spirit air. Lung means a transmission of the oral transmission. Okay, so you're going to hear it. Something will happen in your mind consciousness. Some kind of change will occur in your spiritual body just from hearing these words. And they were designed that way. So try to listen to the words carefully, okay? Here's the first verse. It's leading up to Tonglen. When we get to Tonglen, I'll tell you, all right? Take about a minute. Dungyo tramo tsamyang mindu ching, de la namyang chokshe mebonni, daktan shenla kepa yumin shen de gawa kepa chingilo. In English, there is no one who desires even the slightest kind of suffering. There is no one who ever feels they have enough of happiness. Please give me your blessing to tell myself then that there is no difference between myself and others. Teach me joy in their happiness. Okay? So that's a leading up to getting used to the idea that beings have an inalienable right to be happy. And everybody else has just as much right to be happy that as you do. And we have to be democratic about this stuff. If you find something that would make people happy, there's no intellectual rights. You see what I mean? It's public property. And you have to start thinking that way. It's very interesting. I remember when we first started doing the computer project, and we had all these rare texts, and there was this little part of me that wanted to say, let's keep them all, And then then we felt bad that you even had that idea, and we put them on CD-ROMs and gave them away and put them on the internet. Buddhism should be free for everybody. And happiness, if you find anything that would make people happy, including your own possessions, you have to give up on the idea of ownership, you see? You have to give up on the idea that it's yours and not other people's. If they have a mind stream, then they have equal rights to happiness, and they even have equal rights to the things that make you happy. If you own something or you have a relationship with somebody or something like that, you have to give up on the idea that proprietary idea, there is nothing proprietary. Happiness is public property, and you have to facilitate access to it. You see what I mean? That's that verse. It's Dakshin Nyamba. People have equal rights to happiness. Okay. Here's the next verse. Rangni chepar zimbe chongne di mindu dungya kepe gyurtongne leilen de la kundu sungchene dangzen dunchen jombar jingilo. Rangni chepar zimbe chongne di. Our habit of taking care of our own needs first is a sickness that has haunted us since beginningless time. That's a chongne is something like that. It's an illness. It's a disease that has been in your and my mind since, according to Buddhism, for time with no beginning. And it's a chronic illness. Okay. Mindu dungyang kebe gyurtongne. And instead of serving you, you would think that it would serve you. Being selfish is supposed to help you corner things and keep them for yourself, right? But karmically it has the opposite effect. If you wanted to assure that you will lose everything you like, the best thing you can do is be selfish with it. Got it? Karmically, the only way to lose anything is to want to have it only for yourself. It's very interesting. The very finest method for losing anything that you like is to not want to share it. Karmically, it will force you to lose it. You see what I mean? It's very, by the way, that's why samsara is samsara. That's why it's a circle. That's why the wheel of life is a wheel. The natural tendency is to try to protect the things you want. And the protecting of them is what makes you lose them. Karmically, it's the only way to lose them. Okay. We have to lay the blame where it belongs, finally. Okay. Dangzin Dunjin Jombar Jingilop. Please bless me. All this is addressed to your Lama, right? You are focusing on your sweet root Lama, and you're asking them for their help. And here it's a Dangzin Denchen Jom, means that you're asking them to help you destroy the great devil of the world, which is your selfishness. Okay. The next verse says, Manam chesung dela gopelo, tai yunten juwe gotone, doa dida daki darlang kyang, sole chebar jimbar jingilo. Manam chesung dela gopelo. If you want to be happy, the best way is to take care of others first. Also, it will lead you to have every high spiritual quality that you ever dreamed of. So even if other people rise and attack you, still you should cherish them even more than you do your own life. Okay? Dona chibarang dun konadang, tubang shendun bashik zepai, kyendang yenden yewa topelo, dakshan nyamje nubar jingilo. Dona, to summarize, chibarang dun kon, this is a very famous verse. Chibarang dun konadang. Chiba is a word in Tibetan that means infant or kid. And it's a word for selfish people, okay? I mean immature, childish. Chiba randun konadang. Children only are looking after themselves. Tubwang shindun bashik zepai. Buddhas do the opposite. They only care about other people. Kyundan yundan yewar topelo. Please bless me that someday I figure this out. The difference, you know what I mean? Okay? Please bless me to understand the principle that everyone has equal access to happiness, and that I should actually watch out for them as much as I watch out for myself. Okay. Rangni chenzen guba kungi go, manam chenzen yenden kungi shi. Then this is a final verse leading up to Tonglen, okay? Rangni chenzen guba kungi go. If you want to know the source of every, what'd you say, lousy thing in the world? It's watching out for yourself. Manam chenzen yenden kungi shi. Watching out for others is the source of all goodness in the world. In fact, there is no event in the world which is positive, which is not caused by someone karmically having taken care of someone else. You can say that. If you were in the debate ground in Sera Monastery, you could defend that. If one of those Sarachebas came up and tried to attack Sera May, I could sit and say, yeah, it's true. There's not a single positive event or object in the universe which is not caused by taking care of somebody else first, And you could defend that and you wouldn't lose the debate. You see what I mean? You could go for hours on that. But no one could ever prove it wrong. There's not a single positive thing that happens in your life which is not a karmic result of you taking care of someone else. Okay. So please bless me that I'll be able to practice. He uses the word Nelzor, which means yoga in the sense of a very, very profound, almost secret practice. You see what I mean? He's saying, please give me the power to undertake this extraordinary, deep spiritual practice called exchanging my needs and the needs of others. Please give me the blessing to be such a great yogi. Then you get the real verse, okay? Then you get the verse where all this stuff started. Whenever you get taught Tonglen by a Tibetan Lama, normally this is the verse that they're starting off with. There are two verses. This is the first one, okay? Athena Jatunama Tujechen, Margudo Digdib Dunyakun, Maluta the Dala Mimbadan, Daki Dege Shena Tawa Yi, Drokun Dedan Dembar Jingi Love. First time, Athena Jatunama Tujechen, Margudo Digdib Dunyakun, Maluta the Dala Mimbadan, Daki Dege Shena Tawa Yi, Drokun Dedan Dembar Jingi Love. Second time, Athena Jatunama Tujechen, Margudo Digdib Dunyakun, Maluta the Dala Mimbadan, Daki Dege Shena Tawa Yi, Drokun Dedan Dembar Jingi Love. Third time. In the monastery, you never say it once. It's very beautiful. You go through the whole Lama Chipa. You go through the whole thing twice a month, maybe. Every time you get to this verse, everybody stops. And they go back again. And they do it again. And they go back another time and they do it again. It's very powerful. It means we have to do this. Okay. The English is, and then my high holy Lama, Lord of all compassion. Give me your blessing, please, so all the pain of mother beings, their bad deeds and their obstacles may ripen now on me. And so I may now